Welcome back to the Operators Pod. Today, awesome episode. You are going to love this. We have Pete from Origin Manufacturing on. This is a guy who's actually making stuff in the USA. His story is incredible. So much to learn. We actually couldn't fit it all in. You can tell just how excited we are talking to this guy because he's amazing. And it's just cool to see people do hard things and build real brands and make great products that people love to own. As always, this show is brought to you by our 5 awesome sponsors. We have Fulfill, we have Northbeam, we have Postscript, we have Ceres, and we have Rich Panel. Without them, none of this is possible. And as a bonus, you should stick around to the very end of this episode. We are going to have Sam on from Numeral. We're going to talk about the most exciting topic in e-commerce, which is sales tax. Now, we actually should stick around because a lot of companies get tripped up on this topic and it costs them a ton of money when they go to sell. So stick around to the end of that. Let's get into the show.
All right, Freddie, you just got acquired for $85 billion. And just like me, I think you're using Fulfill. So why'd you guys pick Fulfill? What problems did you have in your business? And what did Fulfill help with?
I think it's the cliches you hear on this podcast a lot, but the reality is the Fulfill guys are entrepreneurs and they've built a modern ERP that's been built over the last couple of years. So it's just much better. Again, I'm not super close in the detail, but the team suggested it's just much better set up, much easier to navigate, and clearly built by entrepreneurs and people who understand the problems that businesses like us face. And I think we were on a more legacy ERP before, and we had so many issues. The account managers weren't technical, and so generally the Fulfill guys, it's a different level, and it's been a great platform for us.
I don't know what it is. I'm from Northern Ontario, Pete, so I'm from like the Maine of Canada.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of people up there. I grew up in the woods. Different kind of folk, I guess.
North of Calgary, right?
Well, I guess we would be north of Calgary. So like next to Quebec, but up.
Yeah.
So like by 5 hours north of Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
And just a small, like 90,000 people, like not a big place. Mining town is where I grew up.
Yeah.
My dad's an electrical engineer. And funny enough, I've told this to the guys before, my family manufactures aluminum in Italy. So we make things. And like aluminum is a crappy thing to make. We make like aluminum rods. Like It's not even like sexy. I don't make cookware. Like
not like the cool rods where you build your automation, like the ones that snap together. Have you seen those?
No. This is like literally just like big steel rods that other people make cool things out of. Yeah, it's like the most boring thing. And then I ended up investing in, and now I'm the CEO of this brand called Pillowcase, and we actually built our own factory here in the west coast of Canada, in British Columbia. So like just inland from Vancouver.
Yeah.
And Mike, how this came together was I threw out on Twitter or X, I'm like, who is making stuff in the USA? Like all this talk about making things in America again.
Right.
And I've always felt like, this, Mike, but like I've always just felt very alone in this. I'm like, so who else?
It's because you are. It's because it's a minority position.
Yes. Yeah. And then people started tagging Origin and Pete here. And I'm like, all right, well, Pete, you gotta come on the pod, man. Like Pete, this podcast, if you don't know much about it, like we talk to brand owners, brand operators. It's pure consumer goods. So everybody that listens to this, I think although every now and again I get like an oil field worker or a plumber. I'm like, I love the pod, man. And I'm like, why? Like, bro, we talk about supply chain.
People there's this, the opium of the day is knowledge. I don't know. It's so many people interested in knowledge and upward trajectory. So it doesn't surprise me. I come to find out my director of e-com and my director of marketing, they're both your podcast listeners. So I was like,
let's go.
And they're
there
like,
it is.
Operators. Oh, we listen to all the time. I'm like, okay. So
it's good to have you here, man. I think for people listening, because the crazy thing is, like, I think I actually know consumer pretty well, and I had never heard of your brand, and I'm like, how the hell is that possible? Because like I've heard of Jocko, obviously, and you guys have had some decent mentions, and like you've been around a while.
Yeah.
And then I realized like I might actually just not be your customer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm also Canadian, so I don't see a lot of American brands up here.
Right.
This happens to me all the time, by the way, with Simple Modern, where
dude, it freaks me out.
I'll tell people like what I do. I'm like, I do drinkware, and I'll tell them the name and just, nothing. And then like I'll get a text, I'll exchange numbers with them or something. And then I'll get a text 30 minutes later. It's like, oh my God, my wife thinks you're the best. Like it's like, it meant nothing to them, but in their wife's context, it was like, oh, it's amazing. But I think my takeaway from that has just been realizing like the world is really big. Like when we started selling a few million units a year, I thought like everybody has to know who we are. And it's like, no, nobody knows who you are. The world has billions of people in it.
Well, I started researching Pete's company and I'm like, how the hell have I not heard of this before? Like, so Pete, maybe for people listening, do you want to give like that 2-3 minute, here's who we are, here's where we started? Because
for sure.
We want to talk like how you guys make stuff. And I've got so many places to go here, but maybe start there.
I'll give the 2 minute. And first of all, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to it. I hope I do the podcast justice, especially since
it's not hard, man.
Some of my peers are huge listeners. So
dude, the bar is low. All right, we're glad you're here, Pete.
Got started in business, when I dropped out of college in 2000, and just one of those ADHD kids who didn't fit in the box, and so launched my first business. It was like an ad agency, creative agency. Wasn't smart enough to get through the recession. Lost everything except for my home, my little cabin in the woods of Maine. And I was training jiu-jitsu at the time. Jiu-jitsu was my passion. It was what kept me sane. And I just saw an opportunity in jiu-jitsu to kind of reinvent the jiu-jitsu gi. And that's the uniform you wear for training and competing. So I looked for manufacturing. I remember I'm Greek, so my papa, I remember him talking about, like working in the Peabody tanneries, and my great yaya working in the Lowell spinning mills as a Lowell mill girl. And so I was like, it's got to be manufacturing in New England. So as I looked around, I couldn't find it, made the phone calls, traveled around. And so I did what everybody else did. And I started importing the product from Pakistan. And this is like 2000, after the recession, 10, 11, right around there. I come to find out I was at a competition, and I'm just trying to like rebuild my life with 2 young kids. And I got a little bit of a head start here, but my manufacturer was ripping me off. Like I didn't have anything patented or trademarked, but I discovered they were actually ripping me off and selling the stuff I was coming, like my design, my inventions, and to other brands. And so I got on a Skype call back then. Was it Skype? With my manufacturer, and I just said, you're stealing my IP and you're selling it to other brands. He's like, well, business is business. You can't do anything about it. And that was the inciting incident that drove me to the crime of passion I call Origin and Jocko Fuel. So I have two brands, and I'm sure we'll unpack that a little bit. Yeah, man, I just took out the chainsaw, started cutting down a bunch of trees in the forest behind my house. I had gasoline in a chainsaw, and I had a lot of friends and family. We had a bunch of eastern white pine timber sawn out, and we erected this timber frame factory in the woods.
Like you literally built a factory. Dude, I rented a building.
Yeah.
You stood it up.
Yeah, we stood it up, and I don't know what I was doing, but it was a hard job. I didn't have any money. I was in debt for my last business. My wife was working as a librarian at the school, making $17,000 a year. We ended up on, state aid for a while for healthcare. It's just a situation. And I grew up poor, so I never wanted to go back there. And I ended up in this position where it's like, what the hell am I going to do? So the only thing I could think of was to build this factory in the woods. And it was inside my head, but the realization of that hit me pretty hard right in the face. So I found a couple of old sewing machines that used to be used at LLB, and they were old 1940s World War II era Singer sewing machines. And we started up a generator and started sewing stuff. And I bled a lot. I cried a bit, and come to find out the fabric that we needed. I wasn't thinking that far ahead back then. It was just hour by hour. The fabric I needed was only made in Pakistan and China. And so I scoured New England, and I found this old abandoned loom that had been sitting there for 30 years. And we pulled this old loom frame out of this mill, this abandoned mill. And I found an old timer to help me put it back together over 6 months through the winter. And we got that thing running again. And
oh my God.
And that's kind of the origin story. And we can take it from there, but that's my 2 minute.
I think you got to keep going.
Yeah, I can keep going.
I have a million questions right now, but I think you got to keep going. Yeah.
So we stuck this old loom in the factory. It took us 40 hours to clean it. Luckily, it was protected by the lanolin oil that comes off of wool because it was weaving wool. And of course, New England was the heartbeat of manufacturing back in the day. The wealth of America came through New Bedford. It came through whaling, then obviously through the factories and industrialization. So a little bit of I guess you could say privilege of proximity to these old mills, and still a little bit of knowledge hanging on here in New England and in Maine, where we wove the fabric, we built the footwear, and we had that. But I had seen it kind of drip away, the slow drip, of the exportation of the jobs and the machinery and the knowledge. And so to bring it back was very slow. I had to find one person that knew how to sew, one person that knew how to weave, and they had to teach me everything. Then I had to teach somebody that thing, and then the two of us had to teach four, and so on and so on. It was hard. At one point, I didn't know what to do. I was going to shut it all down. I was like, man, I just suck as an entrepreneur. And I found this guy who had built this company in my local town of 700 people. And he took a meeting with me, and I walked into his beautiful multi-million-dollar lake house, and I said, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have the capital. He's like, stop talking to me about capital. He's like, you don't need capital. You got a home? I'm like, yeah, I have a small one. He's like, go remortgage it. There's your capital. I'm like, okay. And then he goes, Pete, let me tell you something. He's like, you're not special. Your ideas aren't special, and nobody gives. He's like, do you believe in it? And I said, 100%. He's like, I don't care if it's a good idea or a mediocre idea. He's like, there's a million people that are going to die with their great ideas. Then there's the people who are willing to take a risk on themselves and go all in on their idea. And it doesn't have to be a great idea. It can just be an idea that you believe in. It's like, how far down the rabbit hole are you willing to go? And I told him all the way. And I left there, remortgaged my house, and it kind of enlightened me. It elevated me because it put my back against the wall and I had no way out. And so that kind of, it was like the whole inciting incident up through our first little bit of manufacturing and into some rough times, and ultimately led me down this path of making things and entrepreneurship. And at the whole time, I didn't have a business background or acumen, and so I was just using jiu-jitsu as my guiding light. Jiu-jitsu is about timing and balance and levels and angles. You got to know when to apply pressure, when to tap out, and when to escape. And so I was just using jiu-jitsu in the business, and jiu-jitsu led me down the path that we ultimately took to build the brands that we've built.
So let's fast forward to today. Where are you now? Where's the brand now?
Yeah, so I have two brands. One is Origin. It's a footwear and apparel brand. We have 2 factories in Maine, and we have a pretty massive factory in North Carolina. We employ between 400 and 500 people. And then I have a nutritional brand, and that's called Jocko Fuel, named after the namesake of my business partner, Jocko Willink, he's a Navy SEAL author, podcaster. You guys may have seen him on YouTube or heard about him.
Yeah, Jocko's great.
One of the most famous.
How'd you meet Jocko? You meet him through jiu-jitsu or some other way?
Yeah, so he was following this origin story. And when he got out of the teams in 2010, and I had started right then. So he was a jiu-jitsu fanatic and I was a jiu-jitsu fanatic, and he was following this story because I was just like, I'm just going to put this all out on YouTube. I'm just going to put everything out there and and be fully transparent with what we're trying to do, hoping that, you know, the relevant noise would capture, you know, the attention of whoever might be interested in jiu-jitsu and manufacturing and trying to bring something back to New England. And Jocko was one of those guys because he grew up in Maine and in Connecticut, you know, and he watched those factories shut down, and, you know, and he loves his country. And so I guess he had tried to reach out to me a few times and I never responded. And then finally he put it out there, like, I'm trying to get a hold of this crazy guy up in Maine. His name's Pete. If anybody knows how to do this, like, put me in touch with him. And so this was like 2017. We were like doing this for 7 years by the time I finally connected with him. We were building Origin. There was 12 employees. I had started this nutritional brand. It was making a few $1,000 a week, you know, and trying to build this high margin product for jiu-jitsu. It's jiu-jitsu nutritional supplements for these jiu-jitsu athletes. You know, and Jocko finally got on a call with him, and we ended up talking for 4 hours and on a Skype call. And he's like, I want to get involved. I want to help. I want to proliferate this message. I have this huge platform through my podcast. He's like, I can tell the world the story if you can make it happen. And when he got off the call, his wife said, Jocko, it sounded like you were talking to yourself. You know, who is that guy? He was like, you ever heard of a podcast? I was like, no, what's a podcast? I wasn't paying attention to, you know, TV. I couldn't even tell you who the president was. It was just like 16 hours a day in the factory and eight of sleep. And it was just, I was caught in this cycle. So Jocko and I met. We had a steak and a handshake in Portland, Maine. And I said, man, he didn't give me any data. I just trusted, like, he's like, I got this big audience. I get like 2 million downloads an episode. He's like, I'm just going to tell them, you know, what you're doing. Let's just go. And I'm like,
yeah, like, that's a great partner for you. I mean, Jocko is the perfect partner for this, right? He's your community, jiu-jitsu, the kind of people that like this stuff. You know, he's on Rogan. He's a real man. He's a man's man. Like, it's very on brand. Perfect. You got a great, you know, that's a great influencer.
That's a golden horseshoe.
Yeah,
man.
It's great.
Like, just to have that happen is just such a perfect, like,
and it's very organic. So pardon the pun, close to Origin. It's very organic, right? You met him. It just made sense. And like a lot of people always want to talk about, how do I get this great influencer? It's like, you don't get them. It just happens because it makes sense. And that's what happened with you.
Okay, I have some news to share and take a little break from the episode. After Sean sort of started talking about Rich Panel, I actually moved Pillowcase to Rich Panel about 4 months ago. And I wanted to share some stats with you on how this is going for us. Our customer service, our CSAT, is at an all-time high. Like, we're at 90+% since moving. And you guys know this, like, if you've listened to the show, I'm not a fan of Trustpilot. I think their SEO game is great, but I think the company is awful. I think they're extortionists. I hate their business practice. And I think Rich Panel has helped Pila actually increase our Trustpilot score without me having to pay the mafia, as I like to call them. So most people have to pay Trustpilot to do review programs just to boost their ratings. Like I said, it's extortion. And all we did was just use Rich Panel and better processes that Rich Panel enables to actually get that up. Our self-service rate is over 50%, which is amazing because that's more than 50% of our users actually they self-service themselves, which is less work for us. And all of these improvements came at a great price. I think we saved 50% of our SaaS costs on customer service by moving to Rich Panel. So look, all this to say, they offer a 60-day money-back guarantee on any annual plan. This is a no-brainer. Because of the success, I'm moving my second brand, Lomi, to Rich Panel as well. As you know, on this show, we only take sponsorship dollars from people we use. So I think if you're looking to improve these things when it comes to customer experience, Rich Panel is an awesome option. I think most of us use this now. So go check it out. Thanks for listening. Let's get back to the show.
One of the things that happens a lot in influencer is it's super transactional. It's like, hey, I'll pay you to do this post, do this thing. And we've talked about it a lot internally. I've just always of the opinion that there's no way to really create significant value being transactional with influencers. It only really works when you find somebody who connects. I mean, Pete, it's easy to understand how you and Jocko connected because you just get each other and, you're viscerally about the same things. And so, Jason, you're kind of one of the best examples in the business community of a group that found the right guy, the right influencer to partner with. Jocko's another great example. And I think every brand kind of aspirationally wants to do that. I just think the reality is that there isn't that kind of a partnership out there for every brand. It's awesome when it happens, but Matt, to your point, it is a little bit like catching lightning in a bottle when you find that perfect person to partner with, but you've got to view it like a partnership. I mean, you're business partners with the person. When you're just paying somebody for a post, I don't know. I'm out on that stuff.
Well, there's such a difference between influencer and somebody who has influence, and Jocko just happens to be one of those people who is both, right? He's like massive audience, and the audience cares what he has to say.
Yes.
So it's such a cool find.
Well, and I wonder if some of it is an influencer. There's people who it's like, I post content on the internet to try and make money, and then there's a different group of people that are like, I started out doing content about, whatever jujitsu, because I love jujitsu, and I developed this huge following. And yes, now I do make money off of that, but that wasn't like the origin story, if that makes sense. That I do think that for some people, it's kind of a cash grab, but for other people, it's like they've organically grown these audiences because they just love talking about a thing.
Mm.
Yeah, and Jocko was one of those guys, and we called it the perfect storm. And what we did is we didn't know how to do the deal, so we traded businesses. We just like, all right, I'll give you half of mine, you give me half of yours. And we're like, okay.
Wow.
It was like,
that's really crazy. Yeah, tell us more about that, because that's a great. I mean, this is the definition of what I'm talking about. You're adding a business partner. So how did you guys decide to do that?
Yeah, we met in Portland. We had this. Obviously, jiu-jitsu is kind of this. It's a uniting thing. It's a little bit like a secret society, but not really. It's
a cult. Just call it what it is.
It's a little bit of a cult, right? Like you've got this cultish mindset around it, the cult of culture. But we were both black belts in jiu-jitsu in back then, and to achieve a black belt, there wasn't a ton of them in the United States, and you understand somebody. It's like us talking right here. We all run 9-figure businesses, and they're big businesses. And I know that we have shared experiences, even though we don't know each other, right?
Absolutely.
So you understand who you're talking to. And that's the same thing with jiu-jitsu. I'm talking with someone who has a shared experience, even though we didn't do it together. And so we had this kind of immediate kind of brotherhood bond or whatever. And it just made sense, It's just like, okay, well that's a risk I can take. I said, I need you to come in with the brand, with Origin, and I need you to help with this nutritional thing that we just kicked off. And he had to then take a risk and abandon his relationship with Onnit, because he was sponsored by Onnit and he was getting paid a lot of money for his podcast. And so he had to remove that from promotion. And so he took a risk, I took a risk. We kind of just blended together, and we went head down, arms tucked, with no contract for 3 years. We just went off the handshake. We didn't have a contract for 3 years, like old school kind of, New England business deal, right? Is the way I think about it. So that's how that all happened. And listen, I can talk story, brand. I can get into the geek stuff, metrics. Like I can talk.
What I want to ask you? I want to know your thoughts on this whole, like, Americans don't really care about American made things. This is such a pervasive comment in the consumer community.
Yeah.
And yet when I saw your story and like you employ 400 or 500 people, like I want to know, like, number one, how important it's clearly important to you.
Yeah.
It was clearly important to Jocko. Mm-hmm. How important is it to your customer? And then what are your thoughts on it? Where do you think this is going? Right? This whole, like, it's made here. It's made
I'm excited for this. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, like this is the thing that I think is like, and then there's so many places we can go, Pete, but I think all I'm hearing is a story that goes against what I also hear every freaking day of my life.
Yes.
So maybe go there for a bit.
The lie, the propaganda is that we can't make things in America and that people don't want to work in factories. When people walk into my factory and they see that most of our employees are millennials, Ys, and Zs. The average age is between 22 and 35 years old. They're like, well, how are you getting young people in here? Well, you're giving that young person a purpose, an opportunity to build something, to create something. You're not making them press a button or pull a lever. So you're not doing it the old manufacturing way. You're giving them a skill. So I believe it's a trade. I think you have to trade the term like manufacturing with, oh, I'm going into the trade of manufacturing. I think that is a better way to look at it. And who doesn't want to make something if you're not going to go be a doctor or a lawyer or something else? Like, why not make something with your hands that you can walk away at the end of the day and look back and say, damn, that's pretty awesome that I made that. It's very fulfilling to make something. So I don't think American manufacturing is dead. I think it needs to evolve. I think the evolution, and maybe it is a revolution too. Maybe it's a renaissance of what we're doing, but we're doing the old heritage goods the hard way. We're making blue jeans and leather boots and all these things, like the old way. I think what the consumer has been trained to do is to consume, and they get their dopamine through consumption, more, cheaper. And I think that is, I'm a capitalist, we're all capitalists, but there was in America, and again, I do have strong opinions on this, there was a predatory capitalism that took place with these backroom deals with the World Trade Organization after NAFTA. And it was very unfair when quota went away back then.
We can talk about like everything that went wrong to get us to where we are here, because I think everyone agrees on that. I think we all would agree on that. I think what I really would like to understand is, how do you do this profitably? Because people are in business to make profit. Like you're a capitalist. We're all capitalists, right? Because I look at your website and you're selling at a very competitive price, right? Which is amazing. I mean, your t-shirts are not exorbitantly expensive. Your clothes are
it's
reasonable.
incredible.
They are reasonably priced. So how do you do that?
F to C, factory to consumer. It's a new model. We cut out the whole supply chain between the raw materials and the end user. That's it.
So the raw materials. So where are the raw materials? You have a loom, right? Like, are you like literally producing everything from the ground up?
Not everything, but everything is from the ground beneath my feet. But we work directly with either farmers or mills. There's no salesman in between. There's no converters in between. And then we're taking the raw material, either that we make ourselves from fiber form, or like our leather tannery in Milwaukee, Wisconsin is going to send us the pallets of leather to our spec, and we're going to turn that into the finished product, and then we're going to sell it to the end user. So we're capturing our margin. We're not selling it to a wholesaler that needs to keystone it to go to the consumer. Everything would be double what it is. So the model is F to C. It's factory to consumer. That's the model. That's the way I refer to it.
It's very, what it reminds me of, Mike, is Will Nise from IQ Bar, where he just went like super deep into his supply chain.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm just going to buy almonds from the almond farmers.
Yep.
Like, I don't want to go through
it's vertical,
two or three other
vertical
steps.
Integration. And what we have learned being involved in manufacturing is that the hardest part about vertically integrating, where you really own the entire supply chain, is that you just have to have a certain amount of volume to really make all of the numbers work. And so this is why contract manufacturing has kind of generally won, as it's a specialization of labor. And it's not even just that it's hard enough to get good at manufacturing. And as Pete knows, like, it's hard. It's really that you've got to keep the factory full. You've got to be able to schedule people and know that you're going to be able to keep their hours busy in order to hit the unit economics. And doing that is difficult unless you have real consistency on the demand side. So, I think, Pete, that would be one thing to talk about actually, is how do you do that? How do you pair the development of your manufacturing with the development of your demand profile? Because quite frankly, we failed at that. we did not do that as well as I wanted to. And it was the number one thing that caused problems, is that we kind of built capacity to do X, and then we were bouncing between 0.25 and 0.75 of X on the demand side, and we couldn't make them match up very well. So how did you solve that problem?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really buy into failure. I really talk about tuition payments, because like
we use that same terminology. I love
what
that.
a good term.
Yeah, that you don't fail. Like that anytime money, you have an economic outcome that's not what you want, you can view it as we lost money or we failed, or you can view it as, hey, we paid for something. We paid for knowledge, and that, we paid tuition.
Exactly.
And so like, I love that way of framing it. I also think, Pete, just like, I don't want to interrupt you, but I wanted to point out something I heard in the way that you talked, is that you have a very no nonsense, take responsibility, just do the thing mentality. And that's what entrepreneurship in my mind is all about, and like you said, like even the approach you just took towards like when things don't go the way that you want them to go, instead of being a victim, instead of, whining about it or whatever else, it's like, no, you know what? I'm going to view that in the best possible light, that we tried something. It didn't go the way we wanted, but we learned from it. And so I bought something. I bought knowledge. I bought information. I bought empowerment. And I love that. And I think that this is one of the worst things in our culture, is that we've developed more of a victim mentality, and we've developed probably more of a softness. That the thing I love about entrepreneurship is it's exact opposite. It's like, take responsibility, have agency, Anyway, keep going.
I think that's great. Sorry, Matt.
No, I want to hear about how you do this, like build capacity and demand thing, because I struggle.
I can talk about that. The only thing that's guaranteed is it's not going to be the last time. That's how I think about tuition payments. It's like you're going to continue paying as long as you're an entrepreneur and scaling a business.
It is continuing education, we could say.
Sure. Last year, I made the biggest tuition payment of my life. And we can get into that if you want to, but this tuition that I paid is how we were able to level load our business and match demand with capacity. And it was the hardest year of my life last year, because we had always made money in a meaningful way. And last year, not on Jocko Fuel, on the Origin side, we lost $6 million last year. The cost of growth got ahead of me. Our inventory ballooned to, 14 million. Our line of credit ballooned, and we got way over our skis trying to scale too fast. And so I think number one for me is why? Why do you need a 60% kegger or an 80% kegger? And so I had to reset the team on what we're trying to do with each brand, right? Like Jocko Fuel, it's completely different than Origin. So I'm going to speak to Origin to start. And we can always get into that one, but it's a different type of a business. I laid out for my team, we're building a 100-year brand, a legacy brand. We can go as slow as fast or as fast as we want. We just finished chapter 1, our first 10 years. I believe anything great in life takes 10 years. There's 4 decades of opportunity, 0 to 20 year learning, 40 to 60 you're doing, and hopefully at 60 you're enjoying the fruits of your labor. So 10 years, anything takes 10 years. That's great. We just finished our first chapter of the book, heading into chapter 2, this next 10 years. And 2014 was kind of like that year. And we it up so bad. I brought a bunch of people in because I went to focus on Jocko Fuel, because I was the CEO of both companies. I fired myself in January from Jocko Fuel because I hit my capacity limit. But I was the CEO of both companies, and I was focused heavily on Jocko Fuel. So I brought a team in to help me run Origin, and they were smart individuals, but they didn't, or I didn't do a good job, I guess, of coaching them and leading them. Really, that's what it comes down to, is I failed as a leader. But as this ballooning happened, we were keeping the capacity of the factory. We were trying to jam product in, and we weren't getting the sales velocity or volume. We weren't hitting the seasonal manufacturing demand that we needed, because, we got, fall, winter, spring, summer, and we got to have a seasonal offering. So we missed, ended up at the end of the year having to liquidate the entire thing. So I had to take a step back and get really quiet and think about the long-term strategic vision and where we were going to grow and what I wanted from the team. And I changed the KPIs for the team. It was 50%. Your bonus is going to be paid on the health of the business, not EBITDA, but operating income, cash flow, right? 25% is going to be your personal performance and 25% is going to be top line revenue. Whereas before, historically, it was 50% revenue driven, right? And then the other metrics were 25 and 25. So I flipped the model on its head, and then I flipped the business on its head. I said, instead of the business, everything being a function of sales, it's all going to be a function of brand. So I talk about the brand. The way I put it is the brand is the monster. The monster needs macros. It needs its fats. It needs its, it needs its carbs and it needs its proteins. The macros is time, capital, and capacity. That's your fat. That's your protein. That's your carbohydrates. If you starve it during the winter, right? It's gonna, guess what? It's gonna eat you because it's gonna eat something. So it's gonna eat you if you starve it, right? Do you want to be eaten? And it ate some folks. Yeah. And anyone straddling the threshold, it ate them too. And so we got really lean at the end of last year as I kind of cast this long-term strategic vision for the next decade. And
chasing growth is really tough. You're hard. going to make mistakes.
Incentivizing around revenue. I just think,
so hard.
Listen, this is a podcast of operators. It is not for tourists. It is not for people that want to raise a bunch of somebody else's money and buy, use it to buy lottery tickets. And I just, every time in my career that I have been exclusively focused on revenue, I have regretted it. Or even primarily focused on revenue. This is a contribution profit EBITDA game. And you just have to, and I think it's just worth like pounding the table on this right now, because if you do not demand this level of intellectual rigor of yourself, and if you do not push this down the organization, people will just pick other KPIs to focus on.
Yep.
They will focus on stuff that just doesn't matter, and none of this works.
Well, whatever feels good.
That's right. I mean, your marketing team will say, how many followers do we have on Instagram? It doesn't matter, right? I mean, it matters if you can turn that into contribution profit, but it's just a vanity metric. I think vanity metric, I love that term. Like, there's so many vanity metrics. And this, I'm on a total rant, but like, I'm an analyst at heart. Like, I love numbers. I love spreadsheets. But one of the things that I realized about myself and just about analytics in general over the years is that many times it's just navel gazing. It's just looking at numbers because you love numbers. And it's not like you can say, oh, well, here are all these numbers and this is very interesting. And it's like, yeah, but what are you going to do with that to produce a more profitable business? It's like, I don't really know, but they're interesting. It's like, well, then what are you doing? Like what's the point of all your spreadsheets? What's the point of all the numbers? If you can't impact them, then you're just kind of navel gazing. And so anyway, all of that to say, like, I have had to really focus on this same thing, Pete, of just, you got to really help. I mean, I think it's a discipline, just like jujitsu is a discipline that you have to train, proper positioning, proper balancing of your weight, proper mindset. I think you have to train teams to think in terms of contribution profit.
Yeah.
And if you don't, then you said it and I loved it. It's like, that's a failure of leadership. Like one of the more convicting thought processes I've had is that functionally any failure in the business is ultimately my failure. And I don't just say that because that's quote unquote the right thing to say. It's because, to some extent, I'm responsible. If it's the wrong person, I'm responsible for hiring them, or I'm responsible for putting the person in charge that made the decision that hired them. If it's somebody who's a great person, but they're not doing the job at the level I want, then it's that I didn't communicate the expectations well, or we didn't train them well, or, whatever else. So anyway, ultimately it does roll up to the leader. It is your responsibility. And more than anywhere else, if you're not really good about helping your people know what they're aiming at, then you're just not going to like the outcome.
So I think I was the first one on the team here to use Ceres because I was really excited about getting a data warehouse at HexCloud. I just felt like with all of our channels, everywhere we're spending, we had a bunch of different tools that we were looking at. And I just wanted all the data in one place because I just thought that we were missing out and leaving money on the table. And I really thought that having a clean data warehouse we were going to make money. Like we were just the return on this is huge. And I'm seeing it already. I asked the growth team at HexCloud to send me information and like they sent me these awesome looking sheets. And I'm like, is that from Ceres? And yeah, I'm like, so I'm stoked. Everyone at the organization is adopting it. At the management level, for me, it's really, really important that I don't have to go. People send me 5 different spreadsheets or digging around, and they pull data. Like every single piece of data at HexCloud is being pulled into Ceres, and I'm really stoked.
Yeah, Jason got me on it. And I was super hesitant about data lakes, data warehouses. Like you hear these things all the time, and I'm like, our business is too simple. Like, why am I going to pay an additional fee to have the information I already have access to put in one place? But then they actually set the thing up for me. And then I realized like how backwards what we were doing was. So we have something called the daily growth dashboard. Okay. And it's all spend from all marketing channels and all revenue from all markets put into one thing. And then that's just grown over time. We've been using it for like 8 years at this point. So there's so much data in there and it's so manually manipulated. So we have somebody pull in ring revenue in Canada every day. Okay. So we probably have 4 full-time people who are just feeding information into this. And Ceres just replaces all of that. Ceres is like, look, we'll just hook up directly into all the Shopify markets. We have 5 of them. We'll pull in all of the Amazon markets. We have 8 of them. We'll pull in wholesale information. We'll pull information from Fulfill. And so I've rebuilt the daily growth dashboard, but with actual data connection and not just people typing into spreadsheets. So you get more accurate information, and then you just have the next layer of insight to pull from there. So now I can see ring customer cohorts from Amazon. We never had that before because no one was actually pulling that information in. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, it probably pays for itself just from like the data entry employees that don't have to do that anymore.
And what I'm most excited about too, Sean, is like how we layer AI over all this data at some point. Like I want to chat GPT this stuff and just be like, hey, tell me what this was then, and compare this year over year, and not have to like log in and look stuff up. Like I'm getting Tableau reports and things like this out of it, but I want to just be able to talk to it and get it there. And I think that's next.
Yeah. And so one reason I was hesitant is I thought the future would be Shopify built in AI, right? Or Claude hooks up to Shopify and Amazon and all these different things. But actually, I don't think that's going to happen. I think what's going to happen is you're going to have to take your data and put it into something you own and control, a data lake or a data warehouse or whatever you want to call it. And so that's why I embraced Ceres. I think Shopify will roll out a data tool, or other people will build awesome AI data tools that then you take your data and plug it into. So if you want to be ready for an AI future, there's a couple different ways AI could happen. I think the most likely one is you actually have to have all your data in one place. I don't think it's going to be smart enough to pull in just rich Amazon data or whatever. So anyway, you have to set that up. You got to pay people to do it. We went with Ceres based on Jason's recommendation. I'm paying them. I was paying them before they sponsored the podcast, but they liked Jason so much they came on board. So thank you so much.
Mike, what Pete does, this is such a tactical thing that I love that you do. And this is also like just reminded me of Jocko with the extreme ownership. Which is a great book, Mike, if you haven't read it yet. It's awesome. So Pete, on the boots, because I was looking at your Chelsea boots that you guys make, the Goodyear Welt. It's like on the page, Mike, there's Pete holding the boot and it says, if it fails, it's on me. So it won't.
I love it.
And I'm like, that is just genius.
Well, one of the things, Pete, that you're nailing, and it's interesting because I think even this goes back to your partnership with Jocko, and it's a through line that I hear. I mean, you mentioned this, but I just kind of want to double click on it. That I have never talked to you before this, but I have in 30 minutes, I have such a good feel for you as a person. And there's so much understanding because we've done similar things. Like you made that point earlier. And I think that business and running a successful business is so much about having a clear sense of values, and that like, this is the way that I see the world. This is what I think the way I think the world should be. This is what's good. This is what's worthy of pursuing with my time, or whatever else. And then surrounding yourself with people like that. You did that with Jocko, and I think that we do this in a number of different ways. But one of the ways that you mentioned that I'll just kind of surface is, you mentioned there was this jujitsu kind of commonality that you guys shared, and when you share that, it's like credentialing. So like I think you mentioned there you were both black belts, and you just knew like, if you're a black belt in jujitsu, then I know. I don't even have to know anything else about you. I know a lot just based on that. And because you're interested in this thing, I know a lot about your value set before we even share a word. It's similar like being on this podcast. It's like, because knowing what you've built and knowing what that takes, like, I know a lot of overlap exists in, our value sets, the four of our value sets right off the bat.
Yeah.
And this is what a lot of successful business building. So I talk a lot about this stuff, about culture and about values. And I think sometimes people think it's a little like touchy feely, or like, I don't know, they kind of discount how important it is to business. But that's probably because I'm not always effective at explaining, like, practically what this means is that you just have a really clear point of view in the world. And then you're very good at surrounding yourself with other people that have that same clarity of point of view. And then you attract customers that share that point of view. So like, Matt, you just gave the example of him holding the boot, and it's a message of, I am one of you, and I have a no nonsense, I take responsibility perspective on life. And that resonates, right? That attracts people. It's like, oh yeah, that's my tribe. That's I want to buy that. I want to vote for that with my wallet, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting, Pete, that we asked you about balancing demand and manufacturing capacity, and your first answer is to talk about incentives and team and leadership, which is the right answer. It's like, because it all comes down to that, right? Like, there is a tactical version of like, well, here's your ratio of like capital, CapEx to whatever your revenue. Like, there is that, but that also is like, that doesn't really matter that much, right?
Well,
like that's not what's going to be repeatable.
Yeah, I mean, to balance the capacity and against demand, that's where I had to go first.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Like, get still and look at myself, right? Because like you said, Mike, I mean, it's all on you as the founder, as the operator, CEO. Like, if you're going to carry that title, like you can't be pointing the finger unless you're pointing it right here. So yeah, absolutely. And then I shrunk the room. That was number 2, is what happened. So looked at myself.
Yeah, like, I mean, you took responsibility. I think that's kind of the other thing, like, that's worth saying here, is that if you engage in trying to own your entire supply chain, what I'm convinced is that you're just going to have periods of like production capacity way exceeds demand, or demand way exceeds production capacity. Like, you're just going to get these deltas. And
there's no choice.
Those deltas suck. They are very painful.
Yeah.
And you're either laying off people, or you're playing catch up and trying to kind of like make it right with customers, where you're not shipping orders on time, or, quality has dipped because you're trying to go too fast or whatever. And so like, I think what I've learned through the process is that it's like, if you're going to really try and own it all, you have to have the mentality that you just verbalized, Pete, because you're just going to be on the wrong side of things one way or another a lot. And if you don't have this mindset of like, I'm going to be really doggedly determined in building this thing, and then, there's going to have to be times where I get smaller. There's going to have to be times where I say, hey, we messed it up with customers, then you should not go down this path. And this is probably why a bunch of people don't, because it's just not for the timid, Yeah.
Hey, Pete, I think what Mike is hitting on, I want to hear your thoughts on this, because you own manufacturing. I think Americans are bad at this, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
This idea that you might have more demand than you have capacity to fill.
Mm-hmm.
Most of my American consumer friends lose their minds if they sell out of something. Like, if they sell out of something, it's like, we're never going to get that customer again. They're gone. And you're not like that. You already started talking about brand. You've clearly got a fixed capacity.
Yes.
You're actually like, you're weirdly European. in your approach to
My
this
favorite
business.
place on the earth is Europe, outside of New England. That's where my wife is right now. Yeah.
So you had a rough year.
Last year. On Origin, we had a rough year.
On Origin, yeah.
We crushed it.
You had to do some hard things.
Yeah.
You're clearly still here. You're building a 100-year company. How the hell do you figure out, like, how do you guys figure out what to make? Like, I find that when I look at your company from the outside in and you're talking about your team and brand, I'm like, jujitsu to boots.
Yes.
Dude, you gotta like break that out for us, because that is not what I would have chose.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll clean up the demand thing. And then I'll go from jujitsu to boots. I put the right people in the room. I shrunk the room. I made it I call it the square meeting. It's myself and 4 other people, and we're making all the decisions for the brand. I have a lean manufacturing guy from Toyota. I have my finance guy. I have my e-com guy, and I have my marketing guy. And they all know each other's business. But they're a team. They're not siloed. There's no silos between them. My finance guy better understand how we're running the play for the e-com and marketing side. They don't get to make decisions independently of one another, but it's a very small, tight group, and you can't have any feelings in the room. Healthy tension, no negative tension. So that's the first thing.
Hey, Pete, just elaborate on that. What do you mean by you can't have any feelings in the room? I think I know what you mean, but I just wanted you to kind of elaborate for everybody listening.
So if feelings are in the room, like if I hear like, well, this is what I feel, well, I don't feel this way, there's this thing with like, you can weaponize data or you can use data as a weapon. Okay. These are two very different things. I've had people in my organization that have weaponized data. And weaponizing data is, for me, it's reckless. It's ambition, but it's reckless ambition. That's a self-serving thing to weaponize data. Or it's for optics, which now, again, makes me feel good. I want you to know what I'm contributing. And then there's data as a weapon, which is, here's the data. Let's talk about it independently of our feelings, and let's look at it. Let's look at it in a 3D space from these different angles, and let's make a decision. And ultimately, the brand's gut is my gut, right? But I don't 100% trust my gut anymore. So I need to reinforce that, and I need them to challenge what I'm feeling or the direction I want to take it, and either and help me mold it. So I have this square group, and they're not allowed to weaponize data because I will call, and they know it. And they're only allowed to bring data to use as a weapon for the brand to move forward. Now, I'm not saying that there's not tension in the room around this, but it's ask, pause, push, right? Like, ask the question, I pause, and then push to get to the best result. And I expect that from everybody. And I only put people in the room who can detach from their feelings. So emotional intelligence, resourcefulness, like these core competencies of a good leader in an organization that you want to surround yourself with. Not somebody loaded with emotion that wants to fill the room with a bunch of noise, that wants to get loud and talk about their feelings. I don't care. I don't care about your damn feelings. I care about winning. And I care about having fun while we're winning too.
You can get away with that. You can get away with that in Maine. Yeah, I love all this. You're preaching to the choir, but you can get away with that in Maine. There's other places where you can't, unfortunately. You can only run. That only goes. Not caring about people's feelings in the workplace only goes so far.
And I think there's a difference between saying I don't care about people's feelings and saying, hey, when we're talking about data, this is not an emotional exercise. This is an objective exercise. One of the things that, like a thing that I started saying in some of our meetings, is that if I'm in a meeting where I start hearing a lot of I feel or I think, I'll just say, hey, it's a knowable answer. Like, we don't need to be speculating. We don't need to be saying, hey, what does your gut say? Like, hey, what do you hypothesize is true? Like, let's just go and get data and let's find out the answer. Like, we live in an age where we've got more tools and more surveying capabilities, and the technology makes it where there's very few things that you can't actually get to an objectively true thing. Because it was interesting, Pete, you kind of simultaneously said, hey, this is not an emotional exercise. And then I look for high, you didn't say EQ. I don't remember what you said, but you said something
emotional
like
intelligence.
emotional intelligence. So high EQ.
Yeah.
And it's interesting actually what you're saying, or at least what I hear you saying, which I think is important, is it's high emotional intelligence to not make certain discussions emotional, right?
Yeah.
Like that it takes emotional maturity for me to be able to say, if we're having a debate about pricing, that I can be objective about it, and I can't and I don't bring my feelings into it, or I don't, get really like bound up in one particular way of viewing it because it's my position.
But do you guys really see a lot of that? I mean, what I see a lot of is people like behind the scenes in the organization, like complaining that they're not heard or that other departments don't know what they do. So it's really about appreciation. I mean, sure, people are very emotional in decision making. We talked about Daniel Kahneman in System 1 and System 2 before, but like a lot of people, I think it's more like behind the scenes, and as a senior manager having to like deal with the fact that people are emotional animals, and it's like it just affects their performance. And I would rather just say, hey, just get it done. But like, you certainly can't bring emotions to meetings and decision making, right? Like that's silly. But like when you just overall business management, running a business and scaling a business, I think the hard ass approach, which I love, which I espouse, it taps out. So Northbeam just launched clicks and deterministic views, breakthrough attribution model that deterministically captures view-based performance of ad spend. This is huge. This means advertisers can attribute conversions and revenue to ad impressions and not just focus on one-day click. This is a really hard problem to solve. I'm so totally stoked that Northbeam this on. This new advanced multi-touch attribution model expands on their clicks-only model by incorporating proprietary in-app events from participating ad platforms. And these third-party events are validated by Northbeam's first-party pixel data, offering a more complete and accurate view of marketing performance. I just think this is so useful in today's environment. So many ad platforms have idiosyncrasies in user behavior that result in engagement metrics being more impactful on conversion than most conversion tracking software can measure. Platforms like Snapchat and TikTok, impressions are extremely important. Users are likely to click off of those platforms to make a conversion. But research from Snap and TikTok both prove that users have high brand recall off ads they've seen on those respective platforms. And rather than leaving the app instantly to make a purchase, the users are making purchases later, leaving conversions that are unattributed to ads without Northbeam's CDV model. And so clicks and deterministic views are going to help you track the real value of your ads on more impression focused platforms. So check it out with Northbeam.
Yeah, let me shape it a little bit more, because before you can have extreme ownership, you have to have extreme empathy. I'm not talking about empathy. I'm talking about the room. So in this room, if you want to be part of this room, which is a room within the company, then you have to come to the table. I hate to say without feelings, but that's kind of what, not the company wide, but this single room where I have my best operators. I need them with a clear mind, and I need every bit of not, I wouldn't say every bit of emotion, but whatever that emotion is going to make them say, I need them to check it. I need them to check it at the door. Right.
Okay, so I want to pause here, Pete. I want to challenge you on an idea, because I'm really curious. And Jason, I think there's two really different, interesting discussions. Let's have one of them right now. I want to come back to another one about like what you were saying with younger employees and people that are trying to like kind of like figure out, hey, how do I get recognition? How do I grow? But how much argument, disagreement, getting fired up do you think is healthy? And the reason I ask this is that I am a very stable person, and I don't get into a lot of arguments. There's not a lot of screaming in our company. There never has been. I have started to wonder if there should be a little bit more, that if that's actually been a weakness and not a strength. I've always viewed it as a strength of like, oh, we don't ever have the flare-ups. But when I read about some great companies, what I've kind of walked away from is that actually one of the defining characters, like the Wright brothers were this way. I mean, they would just scream at each other about like, here's the best way to do this. And then by the end of the argument, they'd flip positions and, because in really great companies, you care so much that there is passionate disagreement. But then there's also this ability that like once the decision's made, it's like, okay, and this is what we're doing. And now everybody's bought in. And so I'm really curious your perspective on how helpful do you think it is to have sometimes really, we'll call it vigorous debate, vigorous arguments versus like people just getting along with each other?
Yeah, and I want to frame this right, because I'm talking about other operators, right? Within my business. Healthy tension is what I call it. When I refer to healthy tension, that is where emotion creeps in. So I said, I don't want negative tension. I want healthy tension. They got to leave their feelings at the door, but I know there's going to be healthy tension, right? There's going to be, not disrespectful. Nobody's storming out of the room. Nobody's screaming at each other. You figure it out. I'm out. We're not playing that. We don't play that game. If you can't swallow that and respect somebody, then you don't belong in the room. So I don't do like the screaming, freaking out thing. The healthy tension, I can give you a good example, because it like once a quarter, I would say, to answer your question, in my businesses, like once a quarter, I would say there's healthy tension to that level. And this actually happened this past week, on Monday, actually 2 days ago. There was this big conversation about MER and what it's going to look like in the future, and our funnel activity. And my finance guy was pressing my ecom and marketing guy, Justin and Phil, pressing them really hard on it. Like, we can't, if we need to spend more money on new customer acquisition, and, we're dumping too much into the bottom of the funnel and this and that. And because he understands it, because I need him to understand it. Right. So he's bringing an angle from finance, right? He's talking about finance, and as finance is affected by MER and affected by their activity, and they're talking about their activity and how it's affected by finance. And so after like 2 hours of like back and forth, there wasn't interrupting, but it was healthy tension. It was a little bit heated, but we're all looking at the data, and that gave us the opportunity to scrub the whiteboard and write it out. And what I did is I wrote out the plan to 2035, because what I discovered is that they can't have the conversation they're happening without my long-term strategic vision up for the next 10 years. And so I had to put it up there. And then I talked about the slinky model I want to run. And then I said, I need you guys to give me a plan to run this backwards, because they're like, how much do we want to grow next year? Do we really want to push this hard? Do we really want to spend money here? And it comes back to leadership, right? Because we're, I mean, every peak is a false peak. I mean, if you're trying to scale and grow something meaningful long term, every peak's a false peak. And we kind of got out of our situation last year. It was supposed to take us all year this year, but we just did it in 5 months. So we really sprinted against this. And so I'm like, we're in this, it's an excited environment, but it becomes emotionally charged, because everybody wants to win, but everybody's protecting their business unit, even though they're a team member. And I think that's very, very healthy, but it shouldn't happen all the time. Once or twice a quarter at the most. The rest of the time we're running the play and we're all aligned. I mean, there's a quarterback, you got to run the play. There's one quarterback. Can't have the wide receivers and the running back and the O-line arguing with the quarterback about which play they should run. Like you wouldn't win any games. And I look at business the same way. For me, it's a bit of a sport. So I don't know if that helped clear it up, but
I think Pete, like you and Jason probably have very similar management leadership styles. Like what I hear from Jason half the time, Jason sometimes come across as a hard ass and like a hard driver, but like all I hear is there's a big difference between saying it's like, your feelings don't matter
Yeah.
on this topic, and I don't care about you as a person. That's not what you're saying.
No,
right?
no.
You're just saying that like this is it actually has nothing to do with how we feel. It's just, it's like saying I don't care about who's right. I care about what's right.
Yes, exactly.
Like that's just another way to say it.
Doesn't matter.
And I think you and Jason, knowing Jason better, I get the sense that you guys have very similar, although it might just be the Northeast thing. Jason's a freaking New Yorker too. I don't know. I'm from Toronto. Like I'm a hard driving sort of leadership style. Maybe I'm probably in between Jason and Mike. But yeah, no, I completely hear what you're saying. And I think that like friction and pressure is good, man. Pressure creates diamonds. So like you need people who can get into a room and beat a problem up and not beat each other up. And everybody feels like you leave and then you can say like, I'm out of the room and now I feel like we got something done. I feel
we went to lunch after this one on Monday.
Yeah. Let's go get a beer and
we're having fun. We're all friends. We're going to smoke cigars on the weekend. You know what I mean?
Totally. I think that's how I actually think that's how better decisions are made. I think that's where like you build judgment into a company if you can get into a room and actually beat problems up, like really meaningfully beat them up. And I think you're creating like a whole other generation of leaders by doing that, right? Like that. I think that's another thing. Like that's a form of coaching and leadership development when you can show from like, here's how I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Sure. So I think Mike's it's the right question, right? It's how do you actually operate these small teams who are responsible for a lot? Like every person in your square room, like that square thing that you talked about, like they now then go out and run a part of the business.
Yes.
Yeah. And a point I was going to make about that is that it's like, listen, your CFO is always, he's being asked to view the business through the financial lens and optimize it through a financial lens.
Yes.
And your chief manufacturing officer is being asked to optimize the business through a manufacturing lens. And so
there's tension.
They both care about the business being the most successful. But I love the quote, like when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And so it's like when you're the manufacturing guy, like your point of view is always going to be the thing that makes manufacturing the best is probably the thing that makes the business the best. And when you're the finance guy, it's going to be, corresponding. And so like, this is, you said it, Pete, but I think the role of the CEO is that you have a team of people that each have these different areas of focus, and that yes, they're first and foremost they're committed to growing the business, but that they're looking at it through the lens of optimizing around their function.
Yep.
And that you have to provide some of the overriding vision and sometimes some of the kind of value judgments between those leaders, because I don't really want, I want each of my leaders to have strong perspectives on the best way to run the business. And I probably want them to have a bias towards their kind of part of the business and the way that they think about that. And then it's my job through the casting vision and strategy to help work it out when those are pulling in different directions. And I think that's kind of what you were saying, is that sometimes there are some decisions in our business where it's like, well, this is just better. Like it's just A is just better than B, and everybody can see it. But then there's a lot of times where it's like, well, A has this set of trade-offs and would make the business better in these three ways, but it would make it weaker in these three other ways. And then there's this other option that we could take, which would make us better, in these three different areas, but then weaker in these. And so like, it's more qualitative of like, okay, how do you want to get better? Which set of trade-offs is, and that's where you really have to have a plan and a vision in the CEO role. And that's really what I think the CEO should be doing, is providing some of that.
And I think the key here is the CEO isn't the quarterback. The CEO is coaching the team.
Yeah.
Right. Yep. But the O line needs to block so the wideout can run the route so the QB can get the ball off and make a pass. And I think that's really important, that it's a team. I used to look at business as a family when we were young, and that was like a stage one business. My three stages of business are reckless ambition, tactical ambition, and mindful ambition. That's how I refer to the stage 1, 2, 3, right? And when you're like reckless ambition, you need a family because you're going to screw up a lot and make lots of tuition payments. But it's less of a family and more of a team, right? And so you want to hold each other accountable, but you need to score points. So yeah, I'm not a hard ass though. Like if if things are going off the rails a little bit, I'll be like, fellas, like, hey, Tom, just be quiet for a second. Like, let Justin finish his thought. He doesn't even really need it. He'll check himself. Or like, we don't step on each other's words. We're not interrupting. Nobody's escalating levels or anything like that. Like, I don't allow that in my business. It's just,
That's great.
Can we go back to manufacturing, because I'm very interested in this, and we probably don't have that much time left, but we manufacture most of our products in China. Have cookware is mainly made in China. Cookware requires steel, requires aluminum, requires coatings. We've looked into manufacturing in other places, and it is an extremely daunting challenge. We can't make our own steel, and frankly, the amount of steel that's made in the U.S. today is way lower than it was, 20, 30.
I mean, that's true everywhere, Jason,
years ago.
in every category.
Yeah. And so I would love to hear your thoughts, if you have any, because it's incredible what you've done. And by the way, I know a lot of other apparel brands who have not done what you've done, who are suffering mightily right now. And there was actually, as we record this morning, there was a new statement by Mr. President Trump regarding a trade deal, which is a little bit confusing. I haven't figured it out yet. But
That's exactly what's going on in our Slack. It's like, what's the rate here?
Texting me, like, what, 55%? What's this mean? Pete, like, this is really hard, man. And I just, I was in China 6 weeks ago, and I'm at our factory, which is incredible. It's incredible. And I'm like, we just can't do this here. We simply cannot. So to say like we should bring manufacturing back to the U.S., if it's possible, absolutely. For certain products, absolutely. But by the same token, does it really make sense, like at scale, to manufacture certain normal, like household goods in the U.S.?
It does. It goes, for me, it goes back to like this thing right here. Like, these are my 2 brand books, right? So if manufacturing is a core value for your brand, again, we're talking brand first. The brand needs what it needs to eat, the macros. And if manufacturing is a core value of your brand, then I think it's important. But if it's not, then it's not. Like, first of all, I because I've been I guess preaching this for a long time before it was politicized. I'm very center in the political spectrum. I don't watch the news. I haven't had the news in my house for 20 years. I don't watch it. I don't care.
Good for you.
I pulled it out of my house when my kids were little. And so I do what I do, and I believe in what I believe in. And I believe that the world needs trade. Like, it needs trade. I believe in trade. I believe in fair trade. I believe that the resources around the world need to be shared in a meaningful way, and rising tide should raise all ships. For Origin, the core value for us is manufacturing, because we can build any product we want. We chose footwear and apparel, but you can put it's the wave of freedom. I mean, that's what, like, our logo is. It's a wave, and it's the wave of reshoring, of reclamation and restoration. So it's a wave of, we call it the wave of freedom. That's what it embodies. And we could be 5 times bigger than we are right now. But we chose this path. I don't know if I would do it again, Jason, the way we did it. It turned me gray. Like, it was painful. It's a bit of a younger man's game to like go all in on your first 2 decades of opportunity. I don't think all manufacturing is going to come back, and I don't like the way that we're trying to overswing the pendulum. There's no controlled descent right now. So this pendulum, it took 30 years. It wasn't a giant sucking sound like Ross Perot says. It was a slow drip. It slowly dripped our communities dry, and that pendulum swung. Okay, and so the pendulum's over here 30 years later. Well, to bring it back, there's got to be incentive. It can't be done with force. It can't be done with brute force. And this is the jujitsu in me, right? You can't beat it up with brute force. You can't just rip the pendulum and yank it to the other side. And so like the situation that's happening now is a little bit through brute force, right? And I'll tell you, I actually got invited down to DC for everything, and I spent a day down there, and I got on an airplane and I came home because I'm not into the whole political thing. It's not who I am. Because for me, that screwed up the direction of my community and my county and my state and the country. And so I don't want like, oh, now everybody's talking about this. Let's jump over here. Now we all believe in this. No, I believe that people should have purpose and opportunity. I believe in the foundations of America founded on like ethical capitalism, conscious capitalism, and that's supposed to put money back into your business and pay for mortgages and allow kids to travel on their AAU teams, and you're providing opportunity. I think that's really important, and I think that actually is possibly more important for me than manufacturing, is that the foundation of this dream to build something is possible. Like we can never lose that. But as far as the manufacturing is concerned, I said all that as a precursor because I don't want people to think I'm like one way or another way. You know what I mean? I'm very center on my beliefs. If we have to have trade, you can only get certain things from certain countries. And it doesn't mean everybody should have to manufacture everything in the United States. And I'll give you a good example of this. In Jocko Fuel, the nutritional company, a lot of our ingredients in here aren't from the United States. Like you can't get certain things.
You can't get vanilla in the United States.
Right. You can't get it. And so we need trade to get ingredients from around the world, whether that's from, South America or Canada or Europe or the Ukraine we get ingredients from. So we have to have that stuff. So it's not a core value for Jocko Fuel to have every single ingredient from America and it's got to be put into this bottle and, made in America, right? It's like our protein RTDs, part of them are made in Canada. You know what I mean? So I guess what I'm trying to say is as the founder and the visionary, if it's important to you or if you've thought about it, you should explore it. You should run a parallel path on exploring it. Like it will be fulfilling. It's going to cost more money. It'll be fulfilling. But if it's important to you, explore it. But I don't say dump everything you're doing. And I just gave somebody advice yesterday who's purchasing a product from China. And I actually said to him, I said, bro, you're buying these for 55 cents and you're selling them for $5. I'm like, and you want to make it in America. And I think that's honorable, but prove your business model out, focus on your front end, focus on your marketing and advertising and customer acquisition. And then if you really, really want to make it in America, run a parallel path, because a healthy business is more valuable than a reckless business just trying to do it in the United States. It's not a path everybody should take. Build your business, and then if you really believe in this manufacturing thing in the U.S., run a parallel path. But that's actually what we did too, right? Because we started importing from Pakistan, and I ran a parallel path in the U.S. Of course, we went hardcore in the paint. You know what I mean? Big drop step dunk with building a factory. But it really comes down to what your brand, what the monster needs to eat.
Pete, does the American customer care about things made in America? Like, do they buy? Like, you clearly have a customer who does, but
yeah, not all of them. No, not all of them. What's your value proposition and
Right.
who you're trying to touch? So our customer, we call them like a professional patriot, right? They have their family.
Good term.
Yeah. You can steal it if you want. That's
So good.
That's our Jack.
Know your customer.
You got to know your customer. He's a professional patriot. He makes $150,000 a year. He lives in suburbia. He probably travels into the city. He invests in what he wants in. He goes deep with us. We try to go deep with him. We're speaking to the things he needs and wants in his life. And part of that for him is made in the United States. But you know what's more important to him is that it fits good and feels good. and that's best in class product. That's just as important, especially as we have moved out of early adopters into that next phase of customer. That's really important. So made in America is the icing on the cake, but 90% of it is that it's a great brand with a great offering, great products at a great value. And the dude gets into something, like if I get into something, like I was into Nike Hirachis, like I got Nike Hirachis in high school. I played basketball in them. And when I found out they were gonna, in the mid 2000s, they were getting rid of this style, I bought like 10 pairs, right? Because I didn't ever want to be without this sneaker. I didn't care where it was made. I like this product. I have a Hexclad pen. I'm buying more. I got rid of all my freaking stupid that's gonna give me cancer. You know what I mean? So like I appreciate well-crafted product. I try to have a closet of freedom. I try to have everything, but I'm wearing underwear right now that was made overseas. Like you're never gonna get out of this. It's just, how do we rebalance it? It's all about balance for me. And I just say, if you really want to manufacture something in America and you don't want to screw up your business, run a parallel path, run an activity, see if it's possible, make the phone calls and exhaust all efforts to see if it's possible. And if it's not, it's not. And that is fine.
Pete, is this sort of, I love all that, by the way. You just talked about your customer and you can see Jason cheering you on from like, know your customer. But, does this sort of answer the question too? Like what you choose to make? Like, cause I was wondering if you were choosing products to make based on what your factories could do versus now what I'm suspecting is you're making things for this person that you guys really care about.
Yes. This is the next 10 year, you got to change every 10 years. Like you have to adjust every 10 years, as a brand. And in the first 10 years, we focused on the activity. So like jiu-jitsu, training, hunting, like we focused on all these things that the professional patriot Jack that he did. But as we stepped back and looked at the data, right? We wanted to use the data as a weapon. Listen, I don't wear polo shirts. Never have. I never worn a polo. I wear a button up if I'm, going to a wedding or something. But I literally, I will walk into Goldman Sachs. And
dude, you're talking my language here,
take
man.
my shoes off and I'll put my feet on the desk. I'm just not that guy. And I told my product team 2 years ago, we'll never make polos. Guess what? Jack wants polos. He wants button ups. He wants chinos. Yep. He wants sneakers. He wants Chelsea boots. And so part of like the phases of business it's not what I want. It's what the brand needs to eat. And so our long-term strategic vision, as we looked at the data, was casual, smart casual, and American heritage. And those are the categories we're leaning into for menswear. And I throw up when I say the word menswear. I'm going to change the term, probably field wear or something like that. But it's menswear. It's the thing that he needs, this professional patriot, 24/7, 365, not just the week out of the year he goes hunting or the 2 nights he goes to jiu-jitsu or going in training for a few nights a week. Like it's the stuff he wears every day, all day. And so that's what we're focused on as a brand, Origin as a brand for the next 10 years. And that's the vision I cast for the team, about a week ago, which could only come from me. And so now they all got to lean into that and go. So I don't know if that answered your question or not.
It totally does, man. Yeah. It's, we on this pod, at least, and I think in the consumer community now, people are coming around to this idea that product is actually probably the most important growth lever, and choosing product categories and knowing your customer. And we talk a lot about marketing and advertising in this sort of like direct consumer community. And I think it's refreshing to meet people who think of it more from look, for the next decade, I'm going to make these things for this person.
Yes.
Because that is just what that person likes to use.
Yes.
And I think what's refreshing for me, man, is you're building, you are building a generational brand, and you've got the long-term view of things. And you just don't see that. I mean, Mike, I don't know your thoughts on this, but you just don't see that very often anymore. Not in America. That's why I made the comment about you being more European. I know a lot of Europeans who think this way. Met a gal the other day. she's building a shoe company. And I asked her, like, what's the plan for exit? She's like, there is none.
There's none. Yeah.
We're happy to own this for the next 100 years.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is the kind of, if when you are somebody's trying to make a decision in their business and you say, if you had to hold the stock of your company for the next 50 years and you could not sell, what would you do?
Yeah.
And it's almost always it helps you make the right decision, but so much of how businesses are run is not that. And it's because, I need to goose EBITDA so that we can shop it, 2 years from now, or I've got an owner that wants to get, $3 million in distributions to pay for his share of a net jet, whatever. Yeah. And I loved what you said. I think that long-term thinking has always been a scarce resource. In any generation, I mean, this is why lotteries work. This is why payday loans exist. Like, we have a culture that is built on, as humans, we're built on instant gratification. Yeah. And technology and culture has just gone even further that direction. I mean, you see somebody who, you hear stories of people that have made $10 million in crypto in a year, and you're like, I want that. I want to make $10 million in a year, Who doesn't, right? And it's like, in some ways, one of the ways that the internet makes us less patient is that it just surfaces more stories of people who got winning outcomes without being patient, without doing the work. And it makes it feel more achievable. Now, you don't get the other side of that coin, which is the tens of thousands of people that tried to hop the line and ended up on their butt. Because that's what usually happens. Mm-hmm. And the way that you get ahead is you put in the work and you put in the years and you show up. How do you get a great marriage? You show up and you do the right things year after year after decade after decade. That's how you get a great marriage. There's no shortcuts. And our culture does not preach this message. This message doesn't draw eyeballs. This message doesn't sell out speaking seminars. But this is how you build things that really are worth imitating. This is how you build valuable things. And so it's one of the rare situations where there's so much information out on the internet. There's so much interest. I think one of the reasons why this show's done so well, there's so much interest in, like, how do you build a successful thing? And when you get really down to it, there's a lot of tactics, and it helps to be smart and yada, yada, yada. But the number one thing is to have really long time horizons, to be able to play long-term games with other people that have long-term time horizons. So it's not like, I say this a lot of times with my team, the answer is not mysterious or complicated, but that doesn't mean it's easy. Right? Like, so it's not a complicated answer. It's not a secretive answer. It's just not an easy thing to say, hey, I'm going to keep showing up and I'm going to keep doing the thing over and over again. And I'm going to think about how to manufacture a little bit better for day 5,348 in a row, And then tomorrow I'm going to get up, I'm going to do that again. But when you look at the lives of great entrepreneurs, and when you really just look at the lives of great people that lived lives that we look back on and we're like, that's worth imitating, that's worth emulating, this is what they do. And so I love the perspective. Pete, we're 10 years in. I think this is our 10-year anniversary in September. And one of the reflections I've had is simultaneously, I'm like, this is awesome. I've wanted to build a multi-decade, company. But also, like, for the very first time, I've had times where I'm like, I'm a little bit tired. Like, I have days where I'm like, I don't want to do it today. Like, for the first, I don't know how many years, I didn't really feel that. It was like, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. And then there is a point where it starts to transition from you're just going off of raw emotion and raw enthusiasm to where it is a discipline. Yes. Of like, I'm going to show up, and I just like getting on the treadmill. I don't want to be on the treadmill tonight, but I know that I need to get on the treadmill.
You need those hard years, right? Like, Pete, sounds like you had a real fun 18 months from what I'm hearing. And,
real fun.
Yeah. They're important though. I think that, like, a lot of founders need to hear that's when you do take a longer term time horizon, you just need to know that, like, some years you're getting punched in the gut and a lot. Like, every day.
I mean, 2023, I'm flying around on a private jet everywhere. 2020, 2024, I'm in the factory fixing everything. You know what I mean? Like I'm back in my truck, you know?
Yeah.
So I mean, I love it. Like I love it. And I know we, you know, and I'll go as long as you guys want to go. I don't have anything after this.
I'm going to have to drop here in a second, but I mean, this has been one of those great combos where, you know, like Pete, there's some of these that could
I'd
just
love to
keep
come back on.
going.
There's a lot
so
more
many
we can talk
And
about.
hopefully, you know, like hopefully I didn't hijack it too much with some of the kind of rabbit trails I took us on, but I think it's great to. We actually haven't explored some of the things that we got into with you, and I don't know how many episodes in we are, 120 maybe.
something.
And so like it's always amazing to me when like we kind of find a vein of things that we haven't discussed a whole bunch. So you've got an amazing and inspirational story. Like game recognizes game. The biggest compliment I can give you is that like we look at your story and we're like, yes. That is a true entrepreneur. That's a true operator.
You want to highlight it, Mike, right? Like I think it's
absolutely. This should be a celebration of stories like Pete. Yes.
And I'm such a nerd for like well-made things, Pete, that like I'm looking at your boots. I'm like, I'm so buying these.
Just give me all your sizes. I'll send you guys out a care.
I'm like,
awesome.
I love that you're doing this and you're doing it, and you're that idea of like, you know, giving people like making things as a trade. I freaking love that. I'm so stealing that as a company that makes things, and I want to make more things. And that's kind of why I'm so interested in this and fired up on it. Cause like, I just think there is so much room to make stuff local to where it is
100%.
sold and consumed.
And I think one thing that's going to be a big topic of conversation over the next 3 years is how much of manufacturing is you want to own manufacturing because you want to manufacture to your specification of quality, and how much of it's providing jobs, because the robotic stuff is just coming. And that's a real qualitative thing that's going to be going on. So maybe we'll have some of that discussion next time.
Yeah, but that, Mike, then it's like the debate between like, am I providing a commodity or am I providing art and story and meaning?
For sure.
Like the number one thing I get, like I sell a phone case, and the number one piece of feedback we get from customers, but it just feels good to own it.
Yeah.
Like I like that it's made by real people. I like that it's made more sustainably. It's made from plants. Like people just feel good owning it.
Yes.
And I'm like, but the ones made in like they're freaking machine made.
Well, and I think that it's the question is like, you know, what are you selling? What is the product that you're selling? And sometimes you're just selling a thing, and sometimes you're selling much more than that. You're selling a story, you're selling an idea, you're selling an identity. And in a world where the machines are going to be more and more effortlessly able to create things, whether that's a video or a novel or a pair of boots, I think that stuff actually becomes more important, not less. We talked about this in my industry. As it's become easier and easier to source a amazing quality water bottle, brand has mattered more and more, ironically. And so likely the same thing's true in manufacturing. When anybody can go buy 3 robots and make boots, then the only boots most people want to buy are boots that have a bigger story.
Pete's boots. That's the truth.
I mean, the key to all that, and of course, I know we didn't talk about the nutritional side of the business because it's a 3-channel strategy. But
you're coming back on, dude. You're coming back on to talk about more of this.
we can go deep because there's a lot there. But what I say to my team is, what does the customer give us value for? And again, it goes back to the brand. The customer is going to give you value for what's in this book, you know. And if that is a handmade, hand sewn toe on the boat shoe, then that's what we do.
Yep.
Does the customer give you value for having your own fulfillment center and shipping it? No, really not. They don't. They give you for the unboxing experience.
They couldn't care less. And I think it's a great point. It's Hermes, does that with their bags, and it's like part of what you're buying is the fact that somebody hand stitched it. And anyway, I'm excited to keep discussing with you, Pete. I mean, you're definitely part of the network now, man.
Yeah,
you're a baller. All right, I'll
appreciate it.
I'm not drop.
Yeah, dude. I thanks for coming on. Love everything you chatted on.
Love it.
Most brands are leaving money on the table with SMS. Not us at Ridge. SMS is our #1 revenue driver, and Postscript is the reason why. Here's the deal. SMS is an email. If you treat it like email, you're doing it wrong. Postscript gets it. They help brands like ours turn SMS into a high margin, high ROI channel. And here is 5 reasons why Postscript prints money for us. They stole the 5 reasons why landing page from all the D2C operators, but here you go. 5 reasons why Postscript print money for us. One, we stop wasting sends. Blast and text randomly, bad move, expensive move. PostScript dialed in our automations and subscriber LTV tracking. The results, our abandoned cart recovery rate doubled. They told me that. They did the data. It doubled. More subscribers equals more cash. List growth isn't just about getting numbers up. It's about getting buyers in. PostScript's AI pop-ups and cashback incentives powered by Fondue grew our list 3 times faster. And those people are actually spending money. AI-powered SMS equals instant conversions. Customers don't wait around. If you're not answering instantly, you're losing sales. PostScript AI does the heavy lifting. We went from hour-long response times to closing sales in seconds. An hour-long response time is actually best in class. We have an amazing customer service team using Rich Panel and other awesome tools, but it still takes hours to respond to all these people coming in. With AI-powered SMS, we're getting instant conversions. The number 4 reason why PostScript is the king of SMS. PostScript auto-optimizes for profit. They have this new thing called infinity testing. It consistently finds the best messages to send. No guesswork. We saw a 20% revenue boost just by letting it run. Number 5, we're not getting fined. 1 SMS compliance mistake equals a lawsuit. PostScript makes sure we don't mess this up. We scale without worrying about legal headaches. The bottom line is brands are winning at SMS and growing faster than anybody else because they're using PostScript. If you're serious about scaling up, go to postscript.io, tell them Sean sent you and get a free SMS audit. Your competitors are going to do this. If you sell pans, they are rushing right now. So if you're not on PostScript, you got to get here before your competitors. Get that free SMS audit. And the results for Ridge in 2024, we had 1 million opt-ins. We had 500,000 new subscribers. Revenue was $37 million, grew 100% year over year just on SMS. The ROI, 108x. This is a 151% increase year over year. We had a 106% increase in revenue, 108x ROI, and close to 500,000 new subs. SMS is killing it for Ridge. We think PostScript is the way to go. We think PostScript is the best name in SMS. They have a 5 reason why. They're not going to waste money on send. They're not going to leave your customers out to dry. You're going to get more subscribers. They're going to instantly convert them with AI. They have auto optimization for profit. They're going to keep you compliant. I think SMS is still the frontier of messaging to customers, and PostScript's the best name in it. Ridge did $40 million in SMS last year. This year will probably double again, $100 million in SMS probably because of PostScript. Thank you for sponsoring this podcast. Thank you guys. Talk to you later.
Sam, welcome to the pod.
Thank you for having me.
So we're gonna dig into some sales tax, huh? Is that the plan? Is that what we're talking about then?
Yeah, we can talk about. We can talk about whatever. I'm just happy to be here. I ran e-commerce businesses for a number of years before I got into sales tax. It was just I think after years of grinding on e-commerce, I think I realized it's easier to make money selling to e-commerce than actually trying to deal with stuff getting stuck in containers and punching your brains out. It's at the Port of Long Beach.
Sam, it's also easier to make money podcasting than it is to sell physical goods. So welcome to the Operators Network. I heard you on the Finance Operators, really, really awesome show. And Matt, are you trying to lose the audience? You open it with "Let's talk about sales tax," or is that Jason? It's like the most boring thing on earth. No one wants to talk about.
Being honest.
Yeah. No, man, I use the product. I think I pay full price for the product. Have never invested or taken a dollar, but I like it because I really hate the alternatives. If people listen to this, I mean, they already know it's the worst thing ever. So. Yeah, man.
Like, Sean, why do we, let's just like myth bust here. Sam, help me out. Why is Canada's sales tax so hard? Sam doesn't come to Canada because there's no business model here. Like, we have 10 provinces. Like, there's 10 tax rates. There's no county tax, sales tax rates. Like, the US is the most messed up sales tax system on the freaking planet. Like, you go to the EU and it's 1 VAT rate per country.
Yeah.
We have 1 VAT, like we have 1 sales tax rate per basically state. And then in the US, it's like, how many are there, Sam? 3,000?
There's like
3,500?
13,000 tax jurisdictions, right?
13,000.
So your local school district can pass their own
and
sales
you call
tax law.
Canada an overtaxed country. Just saying, guys, this is not the place you pick on Canada.
All right. Yeah. Maybe it's because they're using words I don't understand.
Yes, harmonized. That sounds far too pleasant.
Yeah.
Well, when you're doing Quebec, you have to deal with French too, which makes it even
Dude,
easier.
that's not sales tax though. That's just a stupid language.
Another thing is, like the different cultures around it. So like in the United States, in Canada, and Australia, like people are used to sales tax being added to the price. But if you ever want to see somebody freak out, see like European tourists come to America and then they're confused that like it's more expensive than it says on there because they're so used to it just being built into the price, right? So Sam, for my own curiosity, why'd you get into sales tax? How'd you make it better? International sales tax versus VAT, and what's a better system? And maybe you just solve that for everybody today in these 15 minutes.
Easy. I think the reason I got into this is, I was a e-commerce operator for a number of years. And, I think sales tax when I started was pretty easy. I could collect and remit sales tax into the state of California. My local CPA was handling it, and then when I go ship to New York or somewhere, I didn't have to even think about it. I could just ship tax free. But at the end of 2018, there was this big Supreme Court ruling called Wayfair South Dakota. And after that, all of a sudden I realized I had to go and register in, 40 plus states. So now I'm dealing with, Department of Revenue, Alabama, Mississippi. I was like getting physical mail from all of these states. I remember like being on the call with this woman in West Virginia and just like getting the huge argument, trying to ask her for some penalty waiver. And, and these are not, it's not like the IRS is actually like very competent. Like the Department of Revenue, West Virginia is like insane. You're like on the hold for 2 hours and they just hang up on you. Like they don't even care. So I think what I realized is, as an e-commerce operator, as you guys know, you're dealing with hundreds of things and dealing with like this boring ass compliance thing where any minute you spend on it is just pure brain damage. That's how I felt. Like I wanted to be focused on like in my Facebook ads or doing ordering or product development, and sales tax was just pure pain. And so I think the idea was, we would use, there's sort of these incumbent softwares, and they're very much like these like self-serve tools. But me as an end consumer, I was still on the hook for, again, like opening the mail, like trying to understand what the hell they're telling me, calling these states. And really, I think the idea was it really should just feel like a done for you service. And yes, it's actual software running most of this stuff at the end. But really the idea was, how do you have a solution that just does it for you so you can get back to work and try to think about sales tax as little as possible? And so that was the idea. And it was like, it was a little hard, I think, pivoting from e-commerce. I have an e-commerce business that was, generating 7 figures cash flow. And I think it was a little bit tricky to cross the chasm, but it was we joined Y Combinator. It was enough like a forcing function for us to actually have to like delegate out our business. And I still run a vitamin gummy business that does north of 10 million a year.
What's the brand, man?
It's called Fling Wellness. We sell it's a gummy. It's vitamin gummies. So I think it's a good vertical, but hard to maintain when you're not in it day to day.
Now, Mike, Jason, Matt, have you guys ever been audited for sales tax?
Well, like I remember when it wasn't even a given thing that you had to collect sales tax. Like this was an argument for many, many years. This shows how old I am in e-commerce, is that for many years, there was this idea of like Nexus and like you didn't really have to collect sales tax if you didn't have a physical fulfillment center, and Amazon, for everybody listening who doesn't know this history, Amazon for years and years and years basically dodged paying sales tax to a lot of the states. And then finally there was kind of like one big compromise where they kind of figured it out with everybody all at once. Now they collect everywhere. But yeah, man, there was a period where it was like people in e-com did not collect tax. Like you were supposed to in some places, but the law was super like, we had like a back and forth with the state of Michigan for like 5 years once. If you think you not paying Google for 2 months is big, like we were like, no, we are not paying this. And it was just kind of like the Wild West. And it's really just recently that I don't know. I mean, Sam, when did it start to become a little bit more unified?
It's that ridiculous Wayfair case, which basically established the Nexus rules. deals, right? And then it was like, okay, whatever you get to, whatever the number is, 100K, 200K a year in sales in a particular state, and you got to start collecting sales tax there. And to answer Sean's question about audits, like, I don't know if we've been audited, but I will know that I get random calls on my cell phone from like the state of Alabama and
Exactly.
Washington State. They literally call me. It's incredible. Like the army of people that are out there just harassing people like us. That's why you need to use a solution like Numero.
Yeah, Marietta County has a lien filed against TextClad. You're like, what in the world?
I mean, we started doing this really early. I mean, we started sales tax in, really collecting sales tax in 2021 outside of California, and definitely, from the beginning in California.
Yeah. So the most aggressive offenders would be Washington State, Illinois, Minnesota. Like, I've been audited by all those states, and that's their main source of revenue. They're like, all these brands are spending money, and they will go in there and get every single dollar. And there's a lot of states who are just happy to get a check in the mail. You know what I mean? Like Vermont, they're like, whatever, free money, dude. We're gonna buy a new ski lift. Do you guys have any tax horror stories? I have a horror story if you guys got one.
Nothing I want to actually talk about.
Yeah.
Okay.
If there's ongoing litigation, you should decline to speak about it.
So all these states will aggressively audit you, right? They'll like, they want to make sure they're getting every single dollar. Well, from 2019 to early 2021, my accounting team, it was an outside CPA, was double paying sales tax for everything on Amazon. So Amazon collects and remits on your behalf, right? That's one of the advantages of selling on Amazon, right? They take care of all that compliance. And then our outsourced accounting team would take whatever our revenue was for Amazon, they would send them an equal amount of money for sales tax for whatever they thought that was supposed to be. So that's over $1 million in sales tax liability that just left my door. And yeah, I guess I probably should have captured it sooner. I mean, it was probably 12 months. It was over COVID. It was crazy. So they're very fast to audit you. How fast do you think they are to give you that money back? Very, very slow. They do not want to give you that money back. I'm still waiting on probably $350,000. And a lot of them were like, well, we'll just give you a credit the next time you file. Guys, it's an automated system. You know what I mean? Like, the money's collected, the money immediately goes to you guys through Shopify, through everything else. So, Sam, you see a lot of that?
Yeah, I mean, if you ever try to get money back, it's not only are they sticklers and, like you have to call them a bit, dozens of times to try to get them to give you the money. Often, like, they'll use that as an excuse to go and audit you as well. So it's, I think the double paying is very common too. Where we recently, we had a lot of clients come to us because, they were using these kind of older systems like Avalara, and, TikTok shops were, people were connecting TikTok shop to their Shopify account, and it was just paying sales tax on all those TikTok shop orders. But TikTok is already collecting and remitting on your behalf. So you're basically paying taxes that you didn't collect. And so, again, that's pretty expensive for all those orders. If you're paying 7-8% of all those orders out of pocket, your basic, that could be your whole margin wiped away because you just made this like really simple mistake. But it's not, again, nobody is like sitting there like spending like, oh, free time. Let me go check out my sales tax and see if it's all configured correctly. It's usually like the last thing you want to even think about. And so that's why it's, I think, such a hard problem is at least, your Facebook ads is kind of interesting. Maybe you'll go pop in and find something there. But with sales tax, nobody is in their free time is just going and playing around and trying to figure out what's going on.
Sam, this is such a great point. And this applies all over your business, but in this area for sure. Every little bit counts, and like you can just be giving away 5-6% here, 5-6% there. It's like the ATM charges that people like. You don't realize when you go to an ATM and they take 1% of your money or 2% of your money. It's like over time that really adds up. And if you want to be a good operator, you need to be like have people in these details and invest. It's really an investment, right? It's investing your time and money, but this compounds in the long term. And it's amazing to me, like people will do that, right? They will double pay these things, but they won't blink at spending in other areas. But this is like basic infrastructure Like, know your numbers. This is the basics and building blocks of a good business is having, I'm sure a lot of the tech services that we use and promote on the pod, I know they're profit center, right? And I'm sure that at the end of the day, yours is a profit center for people because you're going to eliminate costly mistakes.
I think, yeah, it can be pretty insidious too, right? So you can make a small mistake. We had a client recently selling, some shot where you take it and then doing tens of millions in sales. And, they've been taxing it as juice for many months. And when we came and onboard them, we noticed they had a supplement fax on their product. And so it's actually not taxed as juice, it's taxed as supplements in many states. And so again, if you get, there's a bunch of states where they weren't collecting remedied. If they get audited, that's, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And how are you supposed to know like that this should be taxed as a supplement versus a juice? Like it's just nothing you really be wanting you want to spend or waste your time on. And you're just relying on, someone else to get that right for you. So that's why it's really risky.
Audits are one thing, right? Cash out of the pocket, whatever. Let me talk about why sales tax is particularly difficult. It's because it's a liability that doesn't go away, right? So if you want to go sell your business and you do not have your sales tax correct, particularly around this weird 2018 to 2021 period, a lot of time buyers will just walk away, right? Or they will make you put part of your sale in escrow in case states ever come back and ask for that, right? Because I think a lot of states' liability never goes away or goes away in 7 years or some of this. It's a really, really long liability that actually lies with you, even if you didn't collect it from your customers. And there was some SaaS company, I can't remember who now, but like they got into trouble with this and they sent emails out to customers for years, like past customers being like, hey, you actually owe the sales tax. You have to go pay this. And it's like, obviously I'm not going to pay the sales tax for you. You forgot to collect. So maybe Matt, Mike, Jason, have you guys seen deals blow up? Sam, I'm sure you've seen deals blow up.
I just had a friend.
And seeing multiples, like it's kind of like a direct hit on EBITDA. Sometimes is how buyers will treat it because it's real money that has to be paid and it's got to come out of the business. And Jason, you said it. I think that the thing that e-com taught me more than anything else is that your income is always somehow a little bit less than you expect, and your expenses are always somehow a little bit more. And this is a great example. Like, I remember this was back, in the mid 2010s, but I had a quarter where I thought we'd made X and we'd made 30% of X, and the delta was sales tax, And so it really is one of just the fundamentals of being a good operator is that you have to know your numbers and you have to have good tools and systems to make sure that the numbers you're looking at, the one of the things that I've learned is looking at inaccurate numbers is worse than looking at no numbers at all, because it lulls you into a sense of confidence and complacency. This happened recently in one of our channels. It wasn't related to sales tax, but it was related to one of our internal reporting for one of our sales channels. And we were just fundamentally overstating margins. And so that team thought, hey, we're crushing it. We're doing great. And my CFO is like, that channel sucks. And it was like the disconnect was our reporting. So I just think this is one of the things that's like, hey, if we could all vote, would we have to deal with sales tax and e-com? We'd probably be like, yeah, I'd rather not. But the reality is it's part of running a business, especially a digital business, and you have to be on top of it. You have to have something that gives you an accurate view of where you are. But my one other story here is that at one point we were bootstrapped really early on, and they weren't automatically connecting it. We didn't remit sales tax for a year so that we could keep buying inventory, because we knew that if we wrote an apology letter, you get like a one-time kind of get out of jail free. Not like they don't forgive the amount, but they give you like an extension on it if you say, I'm really, really sorry, I won't do this again. And so we wrote that letter, and we were able to delay paying it by a little bit so we could buy more inventory. And I disavow that idea for anybody listening to the podcast. By the way, I'm not encouraging any kind of tax fraud, but anyway, it's a real thing, and it's just part of being a good operator is that you're on top of it.
When you set up your business, when you set up Shopify, any of that, like you should just do it, right? And if you're out there and you're 5 million in sales or 10 million in sales and you don't think you need this, it's just short-term thinking, because you want to be a bigger brand, right? And you should act like a bigger brand, like the minute you get started, because you just don't have to deal with the headache later, and it just comes back to bite you, and it's just going to be a lot more work later. So
one thing that I need to jump in today, because it's like, well, okay, well, why are you guys, why is Numeral like a sponsor of the pod? Why would we endorse this? Shopify has an integration now for this. So why? And the answer is that Shopify's integration is quite expensive. Sam, can you talk about that? Like, am I wrong here that the Shopify can do this service, but it can be on by default sometimes, but it's quite expensive?
Yeah, Shopify, they have their own versions that and products you can use to do sales tax. But the challenge is, again, it's very much a tool and it doesn't handle everything for you. So the first thing, again, is how do you avoid these mistakes? You actually want to get some consultation and understand how to do this correctly. And so for them, with Shopify, it's very much, they have products around this, but it's everything is self-serve. And so you have to figure out what's the taxability by product. In New York, if you sell a bagel entirely, it's tax exempt, but if you slice it in half, it becomes taxable because there's some esoteric law there. And so, probably you're not selling bagels, but it's so easy to just make a mistake. And then you also have to go and register with each of these states, and they don't help you at all with that. So you can go and try to register by yourself, but again, it's pretty confusing. You might check some wrong boxes there. And then Shopify, again, they have a solution, but it only works if you're 100% on Shopify. So if you have any sales on any other platform like Amazon, etc., it's not gonna handle that for you. But I think if you're an early seller, I'm friends with the team at Shopify that have built it, and so I don't want to hate too hard. And they're working hard to make their offerings better. But yeah, I think as it stands today, I think if you just want to be hands off and don't want to think about it, you want someone else to read your mail, you want to, get registered automatically as your sales grow, it's probably better to use one of the newer services out there. Obviously I'm a fan of our own, but I think I think in general, if you look at the way Shopify builds things, things like subscription apps, or even email, they'll build stuff that can kind of do some of the basic building blocks for you if you're a really small seller. But if you have any sophistication to your business, they're not trying to go, and that's a stated kind of a stated philosophy that Toby even talks about. They're not trying to build the long tail of all the complicated things that a sophisticated seller would want.
Yeah, Shopify gives you 80% of the way there for everything, right? And even their buy now, pay later tool is that, right? It's it's very quick, very easy, Shopify branded, but it's really expensive, right? They give you every first thing you need, but then you have to, professionalize a little bit. And Jason, you said hey, you should be using this from the get-go. Now, I think if you're doing 1, 2, 3 million, you're probably not going to collect. That's just the reality. You're not going to fucking turn it on, right? And then maybe you'll use the Shopify one, and then eventually you quickly outgrow that and you need a professional service, right? Because I don't think Shopify actually remits the money for you. That's the other problem. You have to file with all these states and do all this complicated stuff. But when you're doing that, it's better to get that done sooner rather than later, because the liability just sits there and haunts you if you ever want to exit your business. This is what they're going to look at. They're going to be show me every single state, show me when you started filing, and then we're going to run a nexus study to make sure there's no liability. That happens at every deal. Matt, you said you saw that happen before.
I just saw one last month where the final 30 days of diligence, and they had to get repriced because of sales tax liability.
Always happens. Constantly happens.
Yeah.
Because you think you have a deal, and then the tax people do their diligence, and it's going to happen. And if you at least start clean from the beginning, you could be guys, we did everything right, and then you assume the risk of anything else. But yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah, it just winds up in a reps and warranties thing post deal too. Right? Yeah, but it's fine. It's part of the process. It's just in this particular case, these guys did not. They were not playing ball by the rules for a long time. So this was a very expensive mistake that I think is a good lesson for other operators. Jason's right. Start early. Just do this right. Don't screw around.
Okay. And typically you can't indemnify sales tax. It just has to be a $1 put into escrow. They're like, we think your liability is $4 million. So the $4 million is going to sit there for 6 years until either the states get it or we give it back to you or we split it. Or, I mean, if you're really smart in PE, you're just like, no, you're going to give us $6 million and we're going to pay the states. And then you just gamble that you're never going to pay the states. That's usually what private equity does. Well, sick, Sam. Look, I've heard your story. Maybe you'll come on for a full ep and tell it. But dude, you gotta ditch the SaaS. Start selling gummies, man. You got the best business on earth. Why are you getting into SaaS?
Yeah, I think I started off I first sold jewelry. I sold over $30 million of jewelry, but it was like kind of cheap jewelry you'd buy for Christmas. It was this very like, it wasn't drop shipping. We actually had a factory, but it looked and felt like drop shipping. And after selling $30 million of jewelry, if you turned our Facebook ads and Google ads off, you just go to zero. And so I'm like, this is like not a durable business, especially as we started having Chinese sellers going and copying us and undercutting. So I'm like, all right, what's a better business model? Selling gummies. And then even with that though, right at the end of the year, we were happy if 85% of our customers had churned. And so like, and you just always feel like you're at the whim of whatever Zuckerberg's like tinkering with the algorithm. And I think, I actually had a moment, right, where it was like in COVID and we had all these packaging that was just stuck in like on a boat, like just circling around the port of like Long Beach. And I was just going insane. And it was, during ZERP times, and I had friends. I worked in tech before. My last job was like a decade ago was at Airbnb, and I had these friends raising at these like inflated valuations in SaaS, and I started getting jealous. I'm like, dude, you're raising a $100 million valuation with like no revenue. What am I doing? Like hustling, like just yelling at some port operator. And so I think that's why I crossed to the dark side. But, in many ways, I don't know. I feel like doing consumer is more fun in a lot of ways, at least because I have more of a kind of a growth marketing background. And so you can just do a lot more. I miss like just going into my Facebook ads and running a bunch of experiments. But it is, you definitely can build a much more, at least from a like equity value perspective, doing SaaS. And what's nice is I can turn off all my sales and marketing, and my revenue is not going to go down. So that's why we crossed the dark side. Here's the important
question: do you have to collect and remit sales tax as a SaaS company in every state?
Yes, we do collect and remit. We dog food our own product, and we serve. We actually serve SaaS companies as well now. But it's only in something like 25-ish states. But and plus some random jurisdictions. So like in Illinois, sales taxes for software is tax exempt, except in the city of Chicago randomly. Like they care about it. So
dude, look. This is just going to get more and more complex and harder. It's like, do you think the government's going to want less money going forward? They're going to.
Yeah, we know that all these states, they're running huge deficits. Like they're just going to be looking to squeeze more and more dollars out. So you have to be buttoned up here because they're going to be looking for ways to get a bigger and bigger share of the online dollars. For sure.
And imagine the proposition. It's like, it doesn't hurt my local merchants. It's like, if you're Chicago, Numeral doesn't employ any people here. Like Numeral doesn't do anything here. It's like, let's get their money. It's like, it's so easy to have like really large tax burdens on out of state merchants, because why the not? They're not going to vote for the local politicians. So they have no say here. So let's get as much money from them as we can.
Well, it's a decentralized system, right? There was no federal legislation to go handle this. Before 2018, Department of Revenue, Wyoming was just handling the little ice cream shop in Jackson and kind of all these, local small businesses. And then all of a sudden, they're managing like 10x the number of companies. And yeah, again, it was literally this whole industry was based on a 5-4 Supreme Court decision. It's just like the whim of like one person, like all of a sudden created all of this chaos. And so yeah, there's no federal legislation around this at all. Really, it's just like one Supreme Court decision, and then 47 states reacting and passing a bunch of their own laws. It's so we live in a federal country.
Yeah, dude, and if you're a small state, like we'll pick on Wyoming again, it's like, they have a small population, so maybe a bad one. But like, yeah, like Minnesota, they're so aggressive with sales tax compliance. And it's because it's a ton of money. like it's paying for the schools, it's paying for the bridges, and it didn't exist before 2018. And then all of a sudden you have Amazon will do $600 billion in GMV this year. It's like, yeah, you get a huge chunk of that. It's awesome. But anyway, Sam, thank you for coming here and building a great business. I actively use this product. I was on Avalara before. They let me double pay sales tax for a year, and I'm still chasing that down. Sam guarantees I will not double pay using Numeral. So thank you, my man.
Thank you all for having me. It's good to be here.
See you, Sam.
All right. Thanks for making it all the way to the end of this episode. Wherever you are in the world, it is awesome to have you here. If you do not already subscribe to this show, that is my one ask, is please go to whatever platform you are watching or listening to this on. It could be YouTube, it could be Spotify, Apple, I don't care. Just go hit the subscribe button. Please pump our egos up. It helps. And before we go, one more thank you to the sponsors, Fulfill, Postscript, Northbeam, Ceres, and Rich Panel. Awesome guys running these companies. We all use them. These are our vendors. That's the only reason they're sponsors of the show. So thanks again to those people.